Refugees were being shot at by machine guns from airplanes and were sometimes bombed. Also, German tanks were driving on the roads on the snow, which was trampled down by refugees. The tanks drove fast. They wanted to reach the battlefields. They did not stop for refugees. Some refugees were too weak and could not move quickly enough to get off the road. They were driven over by the tanks. By their own countrymen. Yes, war is cruel. They even drove over carts with horses, and you see this in the picture here. The refugees had been refused entry to Berlin. The city was already overrun with refugees. The soldiers blocked the roads, and the refugees were told, "You must go south, go towards the city of Dresden." Howard Zinn said, "War is terrorism, magnified 100 times." Mother Tabea was dying with her children. She had been nearly a month in ice and cold, without shelter and virtually no food. The ice-cold River Oder was along the way. Mother Tabea considered jumping into the river with her 2 children, Sigrid and Edgar. Many other women did so. They took their children to death rather than prolonging their suffering. A voice from a horse-drawn carriage. You see horse-drawn carriages in this picture. A voice interrupted my mother's thoughts. She heard her name, "Tabea, Tabea!" A relative with a wooden leg on a horse-drawn carriage had recognized her. It was God who intervened and sent help to Tabea. It was a relative who was not inducted into Hitler's army because of his wooden leg. Now Mother Tabea needed no longer to walk in the snow, and there was a little food for her and the children on the wagon. On February 13th, 1945, Mother Tabea, her children and the relative arrived outside the city of Dresden in Germany. Mother Tabea was very glad. The relatives said, "No, we cannot stay." Mother Tabea asked him why. He said, "I don't know why, but we must leave." Mother Tabea answered, "The children have had no milk, no food. We must stay. Maybe there's a Red Cross in town and I can get some milk for the children." The relative said, "We must go on." Mother said, "Why? We cannot go on. We must stay." Just then, German soldiers came and took the 2 horses from the cart. They said the horses were needed for the war. Mother Tabea said to the relative, "You see, this is a sign from God that we must stay." The relative said, "No, no, no, it's not a sign from God. We must leave." Mother Tabea said, "I and the children, we cannot go on. We cannot walk. We have no horses. Why do you want to leave?" The relative didn't answer and sat down along the outside wall of Dresden. After a little while, he got up and he said to Mother Tabea, "I'm going to get my horses." Mother Tabea answered and said, "Don't you understand? The horses are no longer yours. They belong to the army, to the German army. If the soldiers see you touch your horses, they will shoot you. You will die." The relative said, "I don't care." He went into the city of Dresden and came back a little while later. He said to Mother Tabea, "The soldiers are having supper inside a house. My horses are outside that house. I will go and get them." He took rags and towels with him to bind around the hoofs of the horses. You see, there were cobblestones on the streets in the city of Dresden. The soldiers would have heard the horses' hooves. He stole his own horses and brought them back. He said to Mother Tabea, "We must now leave." Mother Tabea and the children sat on the carriage. The relative pulled us out of the city of Dresden. It was late afternoon and early evening. While there was a clearing through a hill, we were some distance away from the city now. We started to hear airplanes coming a great armada of airplanes, and explosions started to be heard of bombs dropping above and inside Dresden. A firestorm was raging throughout the city and lighting up the early sky now. Airplanes had come from England, American and British airplanes. They were circling Dresden. They bombed the city of Dresden full of refugees. Fire started and reached into the skies. The city of Dresden was going up in flames. Over 3 days, 3,900 tons of bombs would be thrown on the city of Dresden. Mother Tabea, the children, and the relative should have been killed. By the mercies of God, they lived by leaving just before the attack. Mayat Murad Ildan said, nations who are proud of their guns, tanks, missiles, and so on are deprived of humanity. Here you see a picture of the bombing of Dresden after it had stopped. The bombing of Dresden was a British-American aerial attack on the city, the capital of the German state of Saxony during World War II, in 4 raids between the 13th and 15th of February 1945. 722 heavy bombers of the British Royal Force, the RAF, and 527 bombers of the United States Army Air Forces, the USAAF, dropped more than 3,900 tons of high explosive bombs and incendiary devices on the city. The bombing and the resulting firestorm destroyed more than 1,600 acres, or 6.5 kilometers square, in the city center, as per Wikipedia. According to the author Irving, 200,000 people died in Dresden on February 13, 14, and 15, 1945. They were mostly refugees and civilians. Mother Tabea and her children and the relative were rescued by God via a miracle of calling the man with the wooden leg, "You cannot stay." David Hackworth said, "War is the ultimate reality-based horror show."